welcome to a very special episode of Sustainability in the Air. I'm Shashank Nigam, and this week we are coming to you live from Farnborough International Airshow, one of the biggest gatherings in global aviation where the industry's past, present, and future all park on the same tarmac. And this year, the future was hard to miss. Over the last few remarkable days, I sat down with 9 leaders who are reshaping how we fly. Founders building aircraft that look nothing like the ones we grew up boarding. Airlines and operators betting real money on those aircraft. And incumbent that just flew hybrid electric across the Atlantic. And a company that wants to make jet fuel out of rubbish, quite literally. We asked all of them about the same questions, what's distinctive about you? What milestones are you proudest of? What's something that can make flying more sustainable? And finally, what is the future of flying like? Their answers, as you'll hear, could not be more different. And that, I'd argue, is exactly the point. The future of flying is not coming from one place. It's coming from many different places at once. Before we dive in, a special thanks. All of Simply Flying's coverage from Farnborough Airshow 2026 is brought to you by CAE, whose leadership in aviation training and commitment to advancing safety continue to support the industry's highest standards of excellence. For nearly 80 years, CAE has been at the forefront of innovation in high-fidelity flight simulators and training solutions, preparing aviation professionals for the moments that matter. We are grateful for the support for this special edition. So let's get into it. Every company at Farnborough will tell you that they are building the future. So we started each conversation by asking what's truly distinctive about their approach. First up was Kyle Clark, founder and CEO of Beta Technologies. And I should mention, Kyle isn't just the founder of the company. He personally flew Beta's all-electric aircraft at the Farnborough Flying Display this week. Dives, banks, and all. I was gasping looking at him. His answer to what makes Beta different? One word you often don't hear in aerospace.
There's a thematic kind of overlay of Beta's approach, which is simplicity. And we have really driven in an engineering, in a business construct, and a stepwise approach to market, a philosophy that aviation has no sense of humor for off-point design. No, look, it's serious business to do high quality, safety-driven engineering, operations, and of course, piloting. Simplicity is the overarching umbrella that makes, and it sounds so wild to say that's a differentiator, but it fundamentally is. And every time we come to an impasse technologically or regulatorily, or even in business structure, we say, what is the simplest system? Because it reduces the points of failure, it reduces interdependency, it reduces the need for interface controls, and it has driven everything about our designs and our structure. Even our equity fundraising is dead simple, and it's how we comp people within the business. We have very, very simple equity ownership of our business, which allows people to get the maximum value for working with Beta. It's pervasive across the business, and it's a strategic differentiator.
Simplicity as a strategy. Now from a simple philosophy to a radical shape. Tom O'Leary is the CEO of JetZero, the company building a blended wing wide-body aircraft. And when I asked him why reinvent the tube and wing design that served us since the jet age began, his answer wasn't about engineering at all. It was about what airlines and their passengers are actually asking for.
Well, certainly our company is looking to reshape aviation, so the shape of the aircraft is the most different thing. But yeah, this is really just delivering everything that customers are looking for, right? So our customers, the airlines, they want to see lower fuel burn, lower emissions, lower noise, better operations, and better experience that their end consumers not only want, like everybody wants a more comfortable seat, a place for their bag, faster boarding. But what we've seen since COVID is that more and more customers are willing to pay for that experience, and they're voting with their wallets, and premium cabin services fees are, really just accelerating in a big way.
And then there's Elysian Aircraft out of the Netherlands, who looked at electric aviation and refused to start small. Daniel Rosen Jacobson, the co-founder and co-CEO of the company, is building a 90-seater fully electric airplane that is designed from the ground up around its batteries, which are actually in their wings. So listen to Daniel talk about what makes them distinct.
We started the aircraft design process really from the ground up. So it was fully designed to use the battery weight to the full advantage. So one of the key design choices was to put the batteries in the wing, because the only way to really make it work is to use that weight to generate the lift. What we call put the weight where the lift is. Okay. And that's one of the really key design choices, as well as having a large wing as opposed to the fuselage. So what do we do differently? I think one is we are commercial aircraft. So we are 90 passengers going straight for the airline airlines as customers. It's not a niche product. It can compete directly with other aircrafts in the class, potentially per passenger also with larger aircraft. And I think that's what really resonates. Also means a long path to certification, but others are also paving the way. But I think that's what we do a little differently.
90 passengers, fully electric. That's where Elysian is going big. Whereas Marc Allen and Electra are going somewhere aviation has never managed to go at all. Everywhere. Marc put it to me as the end of an 80-year-old trade-off.
For 80 years, we've had this long-standing trade-off in aviation. You could either have access, like a helicopter, or you could have efficiency, like an airplane. And we are the first to create an airplane. No human being has seen an airplane before that gives you both access and efficiency.
And by access, you do mean beyond airports.
By access, I mean where a helicopter can go. I mean getting into the port in South Carolina, 2 blocks from the grocery store. Right? If you saw our recent demonstration in Charleston.
Yeah.
Right? We flew to the port, not the airport, the port.
Yeah.
Right? Literally 2 blocks from the Harris Teeter grocery store. And when you have an airplane that needs only 3 body lengths to land or to take off, you can operate out of access points that are close to where people actually live, work, and play. You cut out all the middle distance of getting to airports. I mean, remember, airports are basically the size of huge neighborhoods. Ground that's cleared out in order to get up in the air.
Right.
When we can get up in the air with just a soccer field worth of space, that's transformative.
So those were the builders, but new aircraft needs someone willing to fly them. And that brings me to 2 operators who are betting their businesses on this future. First, Bristow, one of the largest helicopter operators in the world, with operations in 19 countries. They actually fly the UK's Coast Guard helicopters alongside similar government contracts in Ireland, the Netherlands, and even the Dutch Caribbean, on top of all of their offshore energy flying. Bristow has even placed bets across electric and hybrid aviation landscape. Beta, Vertical Aerospace, Eve and Embraer, even an uncrewed cargo aircraft called Chaparral from Elroy Air. But why would a company with that footprint bet on aircraft that barely exist? David Stepanek, Bristow's EVP and Chief Transformation Officer, has a phrase for it that I'll be quoting for a long time. You have been supporting a lot of offshore energy.
Yes.
And now you're betting on a future that's more sustainable. Why are you betting on a sustainable future rather than just continuing to fly helicopters, which I'm guessing is a very profitable business already?
It's a very profitable business, and I'll say what my daughter says. We can have both. We're going to continue to support our offshore energy services. We're going to continue to support our government services with Coast Guard rescue services. And we're going to take those technologies that we've learned over 75 years of evolution of operating helicopters and airplanes. We also we have an airline. We own an airline in Australia. And we're going to intersect it with this new technology of advanced air mobility. So the mantra that we have developed at Bristow Group is we're the intersection of evolution and revolution.
The intersection of evolution and revolution. I love the ring of it. Our second operator here is Loganair, the UK's largest regional airline, flying some of the shortest and most essential routes in the country. From the Scottish mainland to islands where the plane is the bus, the ambulance and the postal van all at once. Their CEO, Luke, has been on this podcast before. And what makes Loganair distinct starts with who owns it.
But in terms of UK terms, it's the largest regional airline in the UK. It's also the second largest independent regional airline in Europe. And we remain a family-owned business. And that makes us unique. We have a DNA that really feels like a family business. And that's felt through the employee base, it's felt through the communities we serve, it's felt through the various interactions we have with partners.
Why are you betting your money on an electric future?
So I think we all have to bet on an electric future in some regard when it comes to aviation. We have a network which lends itself to short distances. We have a community type approach which allows us to feed smaller aircraft on shorter distance routes, and we allow ourselves the luxury of remaining current with the next generational requirements, because if you think about aviation as a fossil fuel led type industry, that has to come to an end at some point. So there has to be a better solution, there has to be a cleaner solution, there has to be a greener solution, and we believe beta technologies represent that option for us at this stage of our evolution.
Now, so far you might think this future belongs entirely to the challengers. Not so fast. GE Aerospace has the largest installed engine fleet in the world. And at any given moment, around 1 million people are in the air using GE's technology. I sat down with Christoph Pereira, the CEO of GE's Aerospace Carbon Solution and Software as a Service business. And I asked him what's distinct about how a company that big, as big as GE, approaches sustainability.
So if you think about our North Star as a company, it's always been about more reliable, efficient engines. And obviously efficiency translates into reduced emissions. And if you think about, we've got the largest installed base of commercial military engines with 80,000 engines in the fleet today. And those engines have made progressive progress here over time in terms of efficiency. So if you think about the engines in the 70s and 80s, compared to the engines today, the engines today have 40% more efficiency. Obviously that translates into 40% fewer emissions. And we want to continue to innovate to deliver increased reliability and efficiency. So if I give you maybe 2 proof points for that, or what we specifically focused on right now, I think the biggest program, maybe it's the biggest technology program in the company's history, is the Open Fan program.
This is the RISE platform.
Yeah, the RISE platform. And we believe that will deliver efficiency that's 20% better than the best engines today. So a very significant step up. And the second thing that we have is we've been focused on hybrid electric propulsion. So we struck a partnership with Beta Technology.
Next up is Boeing, which celebrated its 110th anniversary just last week. Allison Melia is the Vice President of Sustainability there, 7 months into the role. And for an OEM of Boeing scale, she told me that the biggest sustainability lever is the aircraft themselves.
We just celebrated our 110th anniversary as a company last week, so we have a really proud heritage. But when we think about sustainability, we're really more focused on the future. And as an OEM, our first and foremost responsibility is to get the most efficient aircraft in the hands of our customers. And we are doing that in a variety of ways. Fleet renewal is the number one way to reduce carbon emissions. Every new airplane that's delivered and replaces an older model brings an immediate 20 to 30% savings, right?
Oh.
Yes, and so we are really working on getting our production system stabilized and healthy for us. And then the second thing we're very committed to is making sure that the airplane will never be the limiting factor when it comes to SAF. So ensuring that our new production aircraft are fully SAF compatible by 2030. Our engineers are working very hard to look at the different fuel makeups, figure out what fuel, what kind of SAF we want to put in the airplane. So those, I think, are our two most important things we as an OEM can do to advance sustainability in our industry.
Here's the honest truth about everything you've heard so far. Electric and hybrid electric are going to transform short distances first. The aircraft you've heard about today all fly regional and urban routes. Long-haul flying, the bulk of aviation's emissions, still needs a liquid fuel for the foreseeable future. Boeing's own commitment that the airplane itself will never be the limiting factor for SAF, as we just learned from Allison, only sharpens the question. If the aircraft isn't the bottleneck, what is? Making enough fuel. And that's where our final guest comes in. A company that isn't building an aircraft at all and could change what most of the world's fleet runs on. The next conversation was led by my colleague Dirk Singer, Simplifying's Chief Sustainability Officer, who sat down with LanzaTech CEO Jennifer Holmgren. Here's how she describes what they do.
What we do is we recycle waste emissions and convert them into sustainable aviation fuel. Ethanol is our intermediate, and really it's just a matter of taking every type of waste, from rubbish to agri-residues to industrial waste like CO2 and converting that through. We have successfully built and made product out of what would be our first-of-a-kind technology. So we can take many types of waste to ethanol, and our first-of-a-kind LanzaTech plant that goes from ethanol to SAF have all produced. So we know the technologies work. That's a key major milestone.
Fuel from rubbish. And Jennifer told us something that explains why LanzaTech has quietly built something bigger than a fuel company. They deliberately chose a common molecule over an esoteric one.
Interestingly, when people talk about biology, they like to make these niche chemicals. And they think that's the only thing that's going to make economic sense. What we went after was a commodity market, which is ethanol. Ethanol is the perfect intermediate to make sustainable aviation fuel, to make diesel, to make marine fuel, and to make materials. So by choosing a common molecule rather than an esoteric molecule, we're able to create a platform.
We asked every guest about the milestones they're proudest of, and you'll find those stories in our full interviews and newsletter coverage that follows in the coming weeks and days. But one milestone from this week belongs in this episode. This week, GE Aerospace flew the first ever hybrid electric aircraft across the Atlantic at 30,000 feet. That's right, the same altitude band as commercial aircraft. Here's Chris Pereira telling us about the record-breaking campaign that was conducted with NASA, Better Technologies, and Boeing under NASA's Electrified Powertrain Flight Demonstration Project.
Yeah, so this air show, I think, is a wonderful one for us. Yesterday, we had the first hybrid electric flight demonstrating hybrid electric at altitude 30,000 feet, which
That's
is
the passenger level, usual
yeah,
flight
exactly.
level.
And hybrid electric ground level very different than at 30,000 feet altitude. So that is a joint program with NASA in Beta Technologies, where we made the investment.
And this was the first ever transatlantic hybrid electric flight as well.
Exactly. Yeah, we actually used the hybrid electric propulsion to fly transatlantic as well. So
this was a SAB aircraft?
It's a modified SAB aircraft where we had one engine is our hybrid electric propulsion system. It has a battery in there, and it's with the traditional propulsion on the other side.
Did you have to do lots of stops?
There were stops along the way,
okay.
but not a lot of stops.
Okay.
Right? So that was a big deal. I think it really, because we think hybrid propulsion is going to be important also for our next platform, the Rosen engine. So we're building capability today, so we have confidence when we roll out a product later that we've got the right proof points, the right experience to do that reliably.
Just think about what that means. The company that powers most of the world's flights just proved hybrid electric works at cruise altitude all the way across an ocean. Not a taxi around the airfield demo, a real flight at an altitude you and I fly at. When something gets proven at that scale by a company of that size, the conversation truly shifts. It stops being about whether the technology works and starts about being everything else that has to line up around it. Now to one of my favorite questions at the show, because it's one where answers surprise me the most. We asked everyone, what's one underrated lever for making flying more sustainable? I expected technology answers like batteries, hydrogen, new types of fuels. What I got again and again was something entirely different. First up, Daniel from Elysian.
I think economics, and I'm not sure it's under leverage per se, but I think it really matters. It may be even more than how sustainable the aircraft is. Okay, sustainability has to be a given, but I think sustainability on its own, maybe it was never enough, but in today's market, it's definitely not enough. Yeah, right. So an airline today is struggling. Kerosene prices are high, kerosene shortages, and so it's great that an aircraft is sustainable, but if it's economically very much underperforming versus the alternatives they use today, it doesn't really make sense to even look at it. And I think for us, really key has been from the very beginning to show that this can be economically feasible.
And Kyle Clark from Beta quite independently landed on the same lever from the other direction. He argues that the cost base and the climate case aren't in tension at all. They're in fact the same case.
Sustainability and cost go hand in hand in aviation. Operational cost just absolutely drives this industry, and it comes in engine overhaul and fuel costs. That's it. When we get to a more sustainable future of aviation, it means a lower cost of aviation. That will allow aviation to proliferate. Engines cost a lot because they get hot, make corrosive gases, and turn at high speeds.
And maintenance.
Well, that drives the maintenance. All of that is gone with electric motors. And aviation is expensive because you got to pour the Jet A in. That's gone with electric, right? Now you have other costs, but they're de minimis relative to this. You have a much cleaner, faster, easier to fly aircraft. There is no question in my mind that when we get this right, aviation will expand by 10, 30, 40, 50 fold.
David Stepanek at Bristow, a man whose company maintains helicopters for a living, made the same point in the most practical terms I heard all week.
I was telling some clients today, sustainability is very important.
Yeah.
And it's a driving factor. Lower noise environment, lower cabin vibration.
Especially with helicopters.
A driving factor. But one of the biggest benefits of electric propulsion systems is lower cost. And simplicity. You're taking out all of the powertrain and drivetrain components that rotate at very high RPMs and generate lots of heat and exhaust. They're gone. So you take that all those complex systems out, you reduce your cost, but you also increase reliability because the components aren't there to fail.
Yeah. Marc Allen from Electra gave the theme a name. When I asked him for the missing lever, he answered in a single word and then explained why chasms are for bridging, not jumping. What is one underutilized sustainability lever that is often, just discussed, goes unnoticed?
Pragmatism.
Okay.
That is the lever that's been missing, and that's part of what we bring. Electric architectures will get more and more efficient over time as batteries increase in their energy density. As other sources of energy become practical to use, whether it's LNG or hydrogen, doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters is that we create new capabilities based on electric propulsion. Over time, that's a bridge to the electric future. And when people try to jump across a chasm that's too wide, what happens?
They fall.
They fall to their death.
Yeah.
But when you build a bridge, you cross over.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've done with the ultra short is we built a bridge to the electric future. Mm-hmm. And if people understood the value of pragmatism and economics, they would understand the value of getting to that electric future through the ultra short.
Tom O'Leary from JetZero, his liver was the one hiding in plain sight, rather hiding in the silhouette of every aircraft you have ever boarded.
Well, I think the shape in general is the under-leveraged sustainability level, because when we think about sustainability, it's typically all propulsion focused. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of JetZero's design, is that we're looking at the other three forces of flight, right? You have lift, weight, drag, and thrust. We've been solving for thrust. So solving for lift, weight, and drag, that's the underutilized, right? And so you get all three and you get into a virtuous cycle where you lower the thrust requirement.
According to Boeing's Allison Melia, an underrated lever is operational efficiency. The efficiency gains that can be made with existing aircraft and infrastructure today.
What I mentioned we're testing on the EcoD is operational efficiency. Customers are very interested in how can they get efficiency gains today with their current fleet, with their current aircraft, and there's actually a lot they can do related to just how the pilots operate the aircraft, including on the ground. Mm-hmm. So whether they are single engine taxiing or just getting more real-time information in the cockpit so that they can adjust their flight paths accordingly, we see efficiency gains of around 10% just by operating the aircraft a little
It's
more.
like 2 generations of new engines.
Yeah.
Like 3 to 4% each time.
Mm-hmm.
10%.
Yeah.
Wow. 10% from operations alone. That's 2 or 3 generations of engine improvement available today. Luke Farallah's lever was the most counterintuitive of the lot, and it starts with Scottish shortbread. Of course it does.
So I think we can all do more for ourselves on the ground in the airports, and there are things that we can all do as individuals as well. So in our business, for example, our in-flight product at the moment is undergoing a bit of a revolution. Now ensure that our providers and our suppliers come from Scotland. So when you're having water or biscuits on board our flight, we have we have shortbread, which a family firm called Dean's in Aberdeen. We've just adopted Highland Spring water. We've just taken off water that came from abroad, actually, ironically. And the essence of what we do on board is now always leaning into what we can obtain locally. And that's really important to us, because the more you ship items in, the less you can genuinely say you have green credentials.
Right.
We do a number of other initiatives as well that all rely on us doing what we can as individuals. But essentially, everything that we can do locally and source locally, we are doing.
And Jennifer Holmgren's lever brings us back to the fuel itself, and a way of seeing carbon that flips the whole problem on its head.
I think the use of waste feedstocks is an underrepresented lever. I think people don't realize how much carbon is above ground that we can use to make product. Everybody still continues to rely on carbon that's below ground.
So there's the pattern. Ask almost 10 leaders about sustainability, and they talk to you about economics, pragmatism, simplicity, operations, shape, and even shortbread. What pattern? Not because they don't care about emissions, but because they've all reached the same conclusion. The sustainable option only wins when it's also the sensible option. The green choice has to be the cheaper, the simpler, the local choice. And for the first time in aviation history, and that's starting to look possible. This brings us to how we ended every single conversation. One sentence, the same for everyone, and we asked them to finish it on the spot. No preparation, no hedging. The sentence, complete this. The future of flying is. Here's what they said.
All wing.
Electric.
Circular. It's made from waste resources.
Advanced air mobility.
The future of flying is more efficient and more resilient with lower carbon emissions.
The future of flying is with a regional airline, short distances, electric flights, supercritical missions, keeping local communities able to live and work where they want to live and work, always being able to rely on very, very high dependable airline services that do not rely on carbon fuels to get them to and from where they want to live and work.
More accessible.
Freedom originally, when the Wright brothers first flew, it was freedom from the ground, right? And that was the piston era. And then came turbines, and it was freedom from continents. We had global connectivity. We moved hundreds of people at a time. This next era, the third era of connectivity, is another era of freedom. This time it's about freedom in terms of regional mobility.
Freedom from airports.
Freedom from airports, freedom from weight,
Commute.
freedom from time, freedom from pain on the ground.
All-wing, electric, circular, advanced air mobility, regional accessible freedom. So many different answers from so many different leaders. And then I put the same question to Chris Pereira of GE Aerospace, the company whose engines already power most of the flights you and I will ever take. And his answers somehow summarized everyone else's.
I would say, and this is me being a pragmatist in general, is all of the above. And by that I mean people always like to make binary comparisons. That's maybe sometimes more interesting and it's more entertaining. But my experience is like you gotta need everything, right? You need new engines, you need better software, you need better weather insights. All of that together will get us to whatever goal you set up for aviation. I think we all have a view of where we want to see aviation in 20 years from now. And I would say you got to put the energy in all of those efforts to make the progress that we all hope we'll see in aviation.
All of the above. All of the above. Honestly, after a few days at Farnborough, that's a very honest answer. The future of flying isn't a single technology or a single company. It's a blended wing. It's a battery in the wing. It's an aircraft that needs just a few body lengths to take off, a hybrid electric flight across the Atlantic, and jet fuel made from what we used to throw away. Evolution and revolution arriving together. Many thanks to all of our guests for their time and their candor, and to my colleague Dirk Singer for stepping in to conduct interviews when I couldn't. Not just that, to our dedicated cameraman Samir Soleh, who stood in the sun with me and Dirk throughout the few days in Farnborough and sweated it out with us. And of course the Simplifying team, who turned this around on the Thursday of Farnborough Airshow as a compilation. So thank you Ayushi, Lihia, Shubhadi, Baiva, all of them. It wasn't easy. Special thanks also to Uri Toth, our producer who has produced every single episode since we started. Once again, all of Simplifying's coverage from the Farnborough Airshow 2026 is brought to you by CAE. For almost 80 years, CAE has existed to make the world safer, delivering cutting edge in training, simulation, and critical operations to aviation professionals and forces across roughly 240 sites in over 40 countries. And stay tuned, we'll be sitting down with CAE's leadership for a detailed conversation in the podcast in the coming weeks. If you enjoyed this special, please do subscribe to Sustainability in the Air wherever you get your podcasts and read our full Farnborough coverage in the Sustainability in the Air newsletter. I'm your host Shashank Nigam, signing off. Thank you for listening and keep flying sustainably.